get the facts straight. How does this virus work? How does it transmit? Where does it want to go? And let's protect ourselves. I'm Dr. Peter Lin. I'm a family physician in Toronto, Canada. The coronavirus is a family of viruses that can cause as mild things as just a common cold, all the way up to SARS or MERS. These are these bad pneumonias that we're talking about. And basically what these viruses are, they look like a tennis ball with all these spikes sticking out of it. And depending on the type of spike, it allows that virus to attach to certain places. So some viruses, they have the spike that attaches to your nose. So basically you just get a common cold. But the SARS virus and this new virus that we're talking about has the spike that allows it to attach to the cells in your lung. And when it attaches there, it puts in information to make photocopies of itself. So it uses our equipment to make more viruses.
I'm declaring a public health emergency of international concern over the global outbreak of novel coronavirus.
Most of the coronaviruses live in animals. In this particular case, it was from Wuhan. There was a fish market where they were selling live animals. And the thought is that the virus was in a live animal, then it crossed into a human. But then what we found was that people were getting sick in terms of healthcare workers, in terms of family members that were looking after them, which now meant that the virus can pass from human to another human. Just like all viruses, it needs to reach a target, which is your lung. And it has to get there with your help. It has no feet and no wings. So therefore it needs us to move it there. So that's why we keep saying, don't hang around sneezy people because you're gonna breathe it in. And don't touch your face because that's how the virus is gonna get in. The masks are helpful, but they're not necessary because they're leaky. The ones that you and I buy basically have pockets here, so therefore the virus can get in. What the masks really do is they stop us from touching our face. If you're sick, we tend to mask you, so therefore you're not spewing out the viruses to other people sitting around you. The true people that have the real masks are the N95. Those are sealed. These are for the doctors that may be caring for the patients. So in the beginning, the coronavirus will cause kind of like flu-like symptoms or a cold. So people just get the stuffy nose, that kind of thing. But you'll understand that as soon as that virus starts manufacturing in your lung cells, they're producing all these copies of the virus, all of a sudden now you kill the lung cells. So now you can't exchange oxygen. And that's why one of the early symptoms is people get very short of breath and they tend to have a difficult time breathing, and that's why they end up in hospital. So currently, unfortunately, we don't have a direct treatment for the coronavirus. So we don't have a medication that can kill it off. And so it's really supportive. So in other words, the patient can't breathe, we give them oxygen, help them to breathe. They can't drink, so therefore we give them fluids to support them.
Grenada, and welcome to another of the Hard Talk program. My name is Devon Romain, a bit solo this morning with you, and we're coming live on the different radio stations, A9.5, 97.5, 92.9 in Carriacou, and We Noise Radio out there in Brooklyn, New York. This morning we have packed, well-organized program for you, and most of you will know on Sunday last, the health ministers of the Carriacou met in Barbados, and so to map out strategies and the way forward in tackling the impending coronavirus that is in the air. So the Caribbean is speaking with one voice, right? They are doing what is necessary to get all the information and be prepared for what is to come, right? This morning, we will be rebroadcasting that press conference, setting the stage, right, for more information for the nation. And letting us know and helping us prepare as to what we can do and what CARICOM is doing, okay? Also, to the nation, this evening at 8 p.m., the Right Honorable Dr. Keith Mitchell will be addressing the nation, special address, in which he'll be addressing especially the coronavirus, right? Things that the government is doing, what they have in place, and so on. So we need to stay tuned this evening, today, Tuesday, at 8 p.m., via all radio stations and television stations, right, to listen to our Prime Minister. It's very important for us to be prepared. This is the watchword, preparedness. Let us stop scaring our people. Let us stop spreading propaganda. Let us get the information from the experts. Let us put together a plan, as this government has been doing over the last couple of weeks and so, right? Preparing for what is to come. As a people, we have to be united. We have to speak with one voice. Let us stop tearing this country apart because of political intentions and motivations and so. Let us get away from that. We are being faced with something that has no color, that has no face. It is not directed to one particular set of people in our nation. But every single one of us will be affected. So as a result, as a people, we need, it is so important for us to come together, share information, right? Let our children know what is going on. Don't hide. Let's speak the truth. The truth will set us free, right? And as a responsible government, right, the NP government is leading from in front. It is so important that when our Prime Minister and the leaders of our country is coming together and preparing plans to ensure that our countrymen is safe. Grenadians, I just want to impress on you the importance of being prepared, the importance of getting the right information from the right source so you would not be misled. Right about now, we'll go right into that press conference. And so that was held on Sunday, right, by the Minister of Health in Barbados and was chaired by Prime Minister Mia Mottley of Barbados.
The medical receipt, but you're not speaking.
Yeah, I'm not using that. Are members of all the members of the media here? Yeah, I'm not using that. Are members of all the members of the media here? Okay, I'm actually going to leave you for 2 minutes while we start. I have to go and do what you can't do for me. But since we are running against the clock and people having to take flights, I am starting. And I would like, first and foremost, to welcome you and to thank you for your patience today. This has been a critical meeting for the Caribbean community and its stakeholders, in particular in this press briefing. Can I ask Dr. St. John also to come up to the head table from CARFA, please? But we also have in this press briefing the Secretary General of CARICOM, the Chairman of COSOD, Minister Marvin Joseph from Antigua, the Assistant Secretary General of CARICOM, who has responsibility for these matters, Mr. Slater, the Director of CARFA, who is joining us at the head table, Dr. Joyce St. John, Mr. Arnold Donnell, who is the CEO of Carnival Cruise Lines, That's correct. Carnival Corporation, full stop, the overall corporation. And Dr. Etienne from PAHO, the Pan American Health Organization, and this therefore is a press conference with a difference because she is joining us by Zoom from Washington, D.C., and to that extent, therefore, since we have stated from the outset that this region will always first and foremost be guided by the medical and scientific evidence, we believe that it is important to have Dr. Etienne as the head of Pan American Health Organization give us an updated status as to the circumstances surrounding COVID-19 and the extent to which there is or ought to be concern or not. Dr. Etienne, please. Thank you.
We can't hear Dr. Etienne. Audio?
Oh, no, it's coming.
Yes. Our audio is on. Is that okay now?
We're hearing you now.
Okay, good. Thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, and it is well appreciated, this opportunity to share some of the epidemiological background information. As to this morning, the 1st of March 2020, globally there were 86,933 confirmed cases of COVID-19 with 2,977 deaths. There are 60 countries that have reported cases. 5 new countries up to this morning were reporting cases: Monaco, Azerbaijan, Qatar, and Ireland. In the region of the Americas, we have cases in the United States of America and Canada. There were 2 cases reported in Brazil. We now have 6 cases in Ecuador, 3 cases in the Dominican Republic, 4 cases in Mexico, 2 cases in St. Martin, and 1 case in St. Bat. Many of our the cases are related to the outbreak in Italy.
Either a T-punch or... Hey, Richard.
As of Friday, WHO has upgraded the risk levels for all countries as very high. WHO has fallen short of naming this outbreak a pandemic, but it is expected that very soon there will be a naming of the pandemic. The outlook for the Carriacou region, therefore, there is a high likelihood that we will see cases in this sub-region. It's already here. We have cases in St. Martin. WHO does have great concern for the situation in some countries, particularly those countries with weak health systems. There is significant useful information that has come based on the mission that went to China. It seems that some 80% of the infections were mild. 14% of the infections were considered to be severe, and 5% very severe, requiring ICU and ventilation. The duration of illness, for mild illnesses, generally about 2 weeks. For severe illnesses, some 3 to 6 weeks, requiring some of them intensive care and ventilation for a period of time up to 40 days. The age group affected, in the age group less than 19 years, we've seen that the disease is very mild and infrequent. Only about 2.4% of children under 19 were reflected in the number of cases. For the case fatality rate, it depends on the intensity and the capacity to manage, but the case fatality rate in Wuhan province was 5.8%, and in the rest of China, 0.7%. For cases less than 8 years, for a majority of the cases, we've noted that it has been worse for persons with underlying conditions, cardiovascular, diabetes, hypertension, chronic respiratory diseases. And the age group most affected is the age group over 80 years. And generally, there were more males infected than females. It is important that we note that in the Caribbean, that the several countries have the capacity to test for COVID-19. These include Suriname, Guyana, Trinidad and Tobago, Barbados, Dominica, Jamaica, Belize, Bahamas, and Haiti. Also Martinique and French Guyana, Curacao and Aruba and St. Martin, and the British territories of Cayman and Bermuda. Our work in the region as PAHO is to strengthen member states' capacity to detect, to contain, and to manage cases. We believe that there is some capacity in the region, but there is work that is necessary to ensure maximum capacity in the Caribbean region. Over.
Thank you very much. At this stage, I would like to invite the CEO of Carnival Corporation. Earlier today, we would have had representatives of the leadership of the cruise industry, Carnival Corporation, MSC, Norwegian Lines, and on Zoom, also Royal Caribbean. We also had the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Prime Minister of Bahamas, President of Haiti, the Deputy Prime Minister of St. Kitts and Nevis, also online, along with ministers from BVI and Montserrat. Correct, SG? Oh, I said them already. And with us present today were ministers from Trinidad and Tobago, from Suriname, and we also had Minister from Grenada and Minister, obviously, who is chairing COSOD from Antigua, Minister Joseph, who will speak shortly as well. And we had as well Prime Minister Chasney and Prime Minister Skerritt from St. Lucia and Dominica, so that we've tried to have a relatively wide sample of all stakeholders in the region, given the fact that this matter is an urgent matter for us and that we need to have clarity and certainty. As I indicated, these are uncertain times not only for the Caribbean community, but for the entire world. And the only way uncertain times can be appropriately overcome is through collective leadership, foresight, and partnership. And it is against that background, therefore, I have identified for you the persons who were present today as we sought to come to a regional protocol establishing minimum standards for dealing with specifically the COVID-19 virus, but generally all infectious diseases with respect to our borders, our travel partners. And today we met primarily with the cruise industry, but we will also later in the month of March be meeting, I believe, on the 13th of March with the airline industry. I'd like at this stage, therefore, to invite our good friend Arnold Donald, CEO of Carnival Corporation, to address the media. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. First of all, I want to thank all of those that attended and participated today, whether in person or via Zoom, and a heartfelt thank you to the Honorable Mia Motley for her leadership, convening all of us together, and then skillfully navigating a rather lengthy meeting to reach some good and important alignment. Our highest responsibility at Carnival Corporation, and therefore our top priorities, are always excellence in safety, whether that's marine safety or health safety, environmental protection, and compliance. And those are our highest responsibilities and our top priorities. And I'm sure a number of the others in our industry share that. So today, discussing this was very important to us. We have, and the industry does, a number of screening procedures and protocols for prevention, surveillance, and response. They're integral to our industry operations because we have to do this all the time. Through the years, there have been a number of disease issues and scares around the world. The name a few: Zika, Ebola, MERS, SARS. We have to deal with isolated things because in our case we go to over 700 ports a year, and there's always something going on somewhere. We've dealt with issues here in the Caribbean even. And so these protocols that we have in place tend to serve us well. And of course, we fine-tune them, as we have in this case, for the specific disease or illness situation that arises, and in this case is COVID-19. I think for us, it was important to be here, to participate, to encourage everyone to align with the guidance and procedures from the World Health Organization and other global medical experts, so we have a common basis for which we can operate and continue to provide opportunities for the economies while keeping our crew, our guests, and the locals that we come in contact with as we bring our guests to places here throughout the Caribbean healthy and safe. So I just again want to thank the Honorable Mia Motley, everyone for giving us the opportunity to participate, and we certainly look forward as Carnival Corporation, but also the entire cruise industry, and working with each nation, each territory, to arrive at what's going to work best for them and their citizens. So thank you.
Thank you very much. One of the key aspects of concern for the meeting was not only to define the responsibilities and obligations of individual partners, whether it is member states, the cruise industry, the public health officials, but it was also for us to address the issue of capacity. I think we have heard from Dr. Etienne and others who spoke, Carfa in particular today, and I'll ask Carfa to speak, to give us background, because it is likely that there is no part of the world that will be spared. But having said that, having listened to the science and the expressions from PAHO and CARFA, it is clear that it is entirely within our capacity to manage and to contain. And once we can detect, contain, and manage, then in the same way that we as small island states, whether it's SARS, H1N1, the influenza, before Ebola, chikungunya, Zika, we can manage this as well. But it is going to require cooperation, partnership, discipline, and communication in order for us to detect, manage, and contain, and manage the process. Dr. St. John?
Thank you very much, Chairman of Conference, and I want to thank you again for your leadership and for achieving what I thought was a Herculean task. I really feel that a lot of trust was built. I really feel that we have gone a long way towards regional solidarity, not just the sub-region of Carriacou, but also with the representation of PAHO and the support, the region of the Americas solidarity. The whole mission is to minimize death and illness. And I really appreciate the agreements that were reached, especially with the cruise industry. We have focused quite a bit on border control, and there is a very important role that the cruise industry has to play in helping us with border control while we remain open for tourism business. But there is also the need to pull back in and also focus on preparing for importation and transmission. And you know that CARFA raised the risk level, and that was before we had cases in the non-English speaking Caribbean, but their cases in the Caribbean. So thank you very much, Prime Minister, for what you have been able to achieve in terms of solidarity.
Thank you very much, Dr. St. John. As a result of the conversation, one of the things that we did was to establish a framework for an expanded Bureau of Heads of Government to be able to immediately work to see how we can marshal the resources that will be necessary, whether from our partners in the travel and tourism industry, from our partners in the international financial institutions or regional financial institutions, or our local and regional private sector, in order to be able to increase our capacity to contain and manage any outbreak, given the fact that, according to Dr. Etienne and Paho, the chances of us finding severe cases are really 1 in 5. And even then, of those, the numbers of persons going into ICU are really very limited and more likely to be persons who are either over 80 or who have serious underlying conditions of a chronic nature. Against that background, the subcommittee of the Bureau, expanded Bureau, so it will be Barbados, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, and Antigua, will start work immediately to see how, in partnership with CARFA and PAHO, we can work with these stakeholders to see how we can marshal the resources necessary to immediately meet our concerns nationally, regionally, and with our partners, particularly in the case of the cruise industry. Those of us that are home porting have particularly different responsibilities from those who are just a cruise destination. Against that background, we felt that it was important for individual member states to all ensure that we have our response mechanisms, our emergency response mechanisms in place. And I'd like to ask the chairman of COSOD, Minister Joseph, to be able to address those issues and how member states will go forward, recognizing that we not only face the public health outbreak, but we are 3 months from the beginning of the dreaded word, the hurricane season.
Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Let me clearly state that my satisfaction in the manner in which this exchange was managed today. I think that we have made significant progress in the communication between the cruise industry and the several states in Carriacou. I'm particularly pleased with the commitment of the cruise industry to maintain a clear line of communication and to ensure that one critical aspect of managing this risk, and that is to ensure that pre-boarding screening is done in a very extensive and effective way. This type of information will assist not only tourism but the ministries of health to be able to make speedy decisions that will not delay the execution of the ships entering the port and departing as well. We want to recognize the important role of PAHO in this process. And the demonstration, for instance, of PAHO's support for the different states in the CARICOM are critical in terms of us building capacity and being able to play a role in ensuring we create a balance between the needs of protecting our people's health and ensuring that we continue to grow this vital industry in the region. I would like to also recognize the important role of SEDIMA, CARICOM and IMPAS, and CARFA. These institutions in the Caribbean are very important to us, And at this meeting, it clearly demonstrates that in terms of capacity, these regional institutions are making tremendous contribution in strengthening the capacity of the region. I want to, Mr. Donald, say that your presence here is very encouraging in light of the fact that I think you had to defer your departure to stay. And that is a clear demonstration of your commitment to ensuring that we collaborate, we cooperate to get a balance in our concerns. The fact is that we have moved now from a state where we are mitigating to a state where we are adapting in the Caribbean. And that means that the Caribbean must build capacity in the reality that one day we'll have to manage a case of COVID-19. As was stated before, it's not if, it's when. And insofar as this meeting is concerned, I am confident that the capacity building is going to be realized with the support of the different institutions, PAHO, CARFA, SEDIMA, CARICOM, and IMPAS. Madam Prime Minister, let me say once again, I really appreciate the way manner in which this was managed, and we can now look forward to building on the achievements of today.
Thank you very much, Minister Joseph. May I say to members that our ability to scale up surveillance at our ports of entry, identify quarantine and isolation facilities, enhance the training of our frontline staff, and strengthening laboratory capacity within the country is really at the center of what we mean when we talk about building capacity. Against that background, we will continue to be guided by the science and the medical officials in this matter so that we can at all times protect the health of our citizens and all visiting our territories, while at the same time protect the economic stability of our region and our countries, given the fact that panic and fear can have a greater deleterious impact, a greater negative impact on our countries than in fact the epidemic of COVID-19 itself. I'd like also, therefore, to use this opportunity to share with you that against that background, the government of Barbados has also, in our attempt to be able to better detect, contain, and manage, we have identified the old naval base facility at Harrison's Point, which is well known to Barbadians for other purposes that were used, regrettably, some time ago, to be able to identify the costs involved in bringing parts of it back into functional operation. I visited the site yesterday with the Minister of Health, the Attorney General, the Minister in the Ministry of Public Works, Peter Phillips, as well as the Minister of Foreign Affairs. We had MTW clear all of the bush because regrettably it has become overgrown. All of the windows and doors, conduit, wires, everything lifted out, but the buildings are in good shape. And that's the important thing that will allow us to move quickly. And it is against that background, therefore, that so long as we can identify the requisite resources, we will, on a building by building by building basis, start to increase our capacity even beyond the 80 to 100 that I spoke to you about on Thursday in the press conference, because we are cognizant that as a home port, we also have to be able to contain and to be able to allow persons, in the event that there is a problem, to be able to move quickly. It is against this background that the government of Barbados will keep in regular contact with the people, because we believe that nature abhors a vacuum, and that the most important thing is that people have clarity as to what is happening, clarity as to who has what responsibility, clarity as to whose decisions they are to make in the various aspects of what we're doing. This is not a simple issue for us because we are in an IMF program, and therefore we need to be able to treat to those intervening extraordinary events in the manner in which others will do so. And at this stage, therefore, we are keeping the country up to date as to where we are going. And I want to thank the members of the social partnership, members of the labor movement, members of the private sector and their leadership for being here today in these discussions as part of the Barbados delegation. This is not an easy moment for any of us. And because we are living in a world where in the last decade alone, air travel has virtually doubled, because we are living in a world where communication between people is as easy as picking up this phone and using it, it means that we are fighting new forces in our ability to detect, contain, and manage any public health outbreak, not just this one. And to that extent, because of the rise of fake news in the last decade as well, it is absolutely important that people only seek and receive their information from credible sources, credible, established sources, either nationally, regionally, or internationally. And I want to ask the public of the Caribbean to work with us in that respect, because you will not catch this by going into a building that somebody went into. You will not catch COVID-19 by standing 10 feet or 15 feet away from somebody. And I'm asking that we have across the region and across social media regional public service announcements that will allow ordinary people to better understand and appreciate how to take care of yourself. We've already said wash your hands regularly. That you should be doing anyhow before COVID-19. We've already said try not to touch your face. Well, for those of us who interact a lot in public, we had red eye before we had COVID-19. So you should also not be touching your face regularly. We've also said to be able to manage your environment properly. In some countries, mosquito-borne diseases pose a greater likelihood of problems for our people than COVID-19. So we need to contextualize this, and we need to recognize that the one thing we cannot do is to start to attack nationalities or countries, or to get a level of xenophobia and to close off borders and to create barriers that will in fact lead to loss of jobs, loss of economic activity, greater social implosion, greater opportunities for crime, and all of the other things which are equally public health disorders. So I ask us please to bear in mind that we are going to communicate with you. We don't know whether a vaccine will come in 12 months, 15 months. We don't know. But what we do know is that we are setting out clear boundaries and responsibilities for individual partners, and that we are going to try to increase our capacity to detect, increase our capacity to manage, increase our capacity to contain. And we are happy that the cruise lines have also agreed that where possible, they will also work to facilitate the taking of samples so that we can reduce the time taken in order for any testing to be done. I think it is only fair that we place in context too, that if Carnival, for example, says that they have about 250,000 people traveling every week, and there has not been a single case within the region on a cruise vessel, we have to be thankful for that, and we pray that we can continue to be thankful through enhanced measures on both of our parts in that respect. We have also to do the same for cargo vessels and airlines, and we intend to do so as we go forward. I'd like to also therefore thank those ministers, those prime ministers, those who are still online, the Director General of PAHO and all of her staff, of CARFA and her staff, of SEDIMA and his staff, of IMPACTS and his staff, and of course the CARICOM Secretariat, the Secretary General had to take his leave to return to Georgetown. As you know, we have elections in Georgetown tomorrow, and therefore we are truly, as a region, having to walk and chew. But we can walk, chew, dance, somersault, and do many other things together. So I have every confidence that we, the people of this region, as our others before us have risen to the occasion, that on this occasion we shall rise to it, and you shall hear us regularly, not because we want our voices to be heard, but because nature abhors a vacuum, and it is important that the people of this region can get about their ordinary lives while allowing us to take the actions to contain the spread and to ensure we manage effectively those who are affected by it and infected by it. Any questions, please, for any of us?
Elaborate on what, if any, agreements were made in terms of regularization today. What can you tell us?
As I said, we basically settled, and you'll have the communique, a regional protocol that establishes minimum standards as to what we expect from the cruise industry, what we expect from our own member states. The extent to which one member state may differ from another will be collated and supplied to the cruise industry by no later than Tuesday evening by CARFA. CARFA, for those who don't know, is the Caribbean Public Health Agency. And similarly, we've created a subcommittee of the Bureau in order to be able to start the discussions with our regional and international partners. And against that background, we have asked both PAHO and CARFA to help us in the identification of the gaps that exist within our respective member states, so that as we move to marshal resources, we will be in a position to help. We recognize that instead of every country having the same level, it may well be the identification of a few countries within the region because of what is involved. And to that extent, in the same way that Barbados has identified, other countries will also be looking to expand hospital capacity and capacity, particularly for quarantining and isolating cases. Okay? I think that captures it. Did I miss out anything? Thank you. I should say that the cruise lines currently test for influenza A. What was made clear to us is that they would not be in a position to test for COVID-19 because there is not yet a rapid test available. So for those who may be asking that question at home, I decided to answer it up front. But on when such a test is available, then obviously it will make everyone's lives easier in the same way that when a vaccine is available, it will make everyone's life easier. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Prime Minister, you mentioned the naval base in St. Lucie. Can you tell us exactly what you're planning to do there? You said you're increasing your capacity. Is that you're using that as a quarantine area?
Be looking there to use both for quarantine and isolation. Luckily, we have a number of buildings that will allow us to be able to deal with quarantining. And previously, when it was used as the temporary prison, there was also a temporary hospital provided there. So we have a building that we will have to bring back into shape. It's a couple weeks' work to do all of it, but luckily the engineering of the walls and the flat roofs. In fact, let me say that whether it is public health outbreak, whether it is hurricane or other natural or man-made disaster, I am now satisfied that each country in the region needs some kind of facility that allows us to be able to retreat in times of emergency in order to be able to sustain the state or to allow the state to contain a situation that is otherwise uncontainable. And I regret a country should not have to spend money twice within 20 years on the same thing. But regrettably, what we saw there yesterday was a decade or more of absolute and utter neglect, with bush and trees 15 feet high, 20 feet high, and as I said, most of the buildings stripped. But fortunately, the walls are in good shape, and therefore we believe we can do some quick work on that. In the interim, we do have capacity, as I identified to the country on Thursday, okay, at Elaine's Canterbury Centre, the old district hospital, which is actually currently under repair now, Minister Bostic has advised, and also Paragon and the BDF's military hospital, which is second to none, which can hold quite a few people.
I understand it will be early days, but you have a guesstimate perhaps of how much that work is going to cost?
Absolutely not. I'm not even going to try. The Ministry of Health has now to engage officials. We're going to need a separate project manager, because the truth is, the one thing you do not do in a crisis is to delude yourself by believing that you can shift resources from existing capacity to new one, because what you end up doing is creating a problem with your existing obligations. So I've given instructions that they are to be able to invite the quotations for project management, and then let them go immediately to invite quotations from those who have the capacity to act fast and to act competently as well.
Prime Minister, if there is a need for that building to be used, what is the patient capacity for it? Can you say it?
I can't tell you the capacity from the point of view of the hospital, but suffice it to say that the building is probably almost as big as this room, so it can hold quite a bit for the isolation and for the quarantine. There are a number of buildings, but the immediate building we're looking at for the quarantine has the capacity probably to hold collectively, Jeffrey, what, 150, 160 people minimum there? About that. Okay? And that one would be quarantine. The one that is the hospital for isolation will be obviously slightly less. And you would only be transferring people to isolation if they tested positive or developed the symptoms that would lead to them having to be tested, and those tests are available to give us results within 4 hours. I really want to commend the Barbados medical establishment too, because all the talk, the immigration, the customs, the port workers, and the doctors and nurses that are on the front line of keeping this country safe. And without them, we could not be here today even talking. So I really, really, really want to commend all of those officials on the port, the airport, immigration, customs, the port workers of at all levels, in particular the mooring gang, and of course the nurses, doctors, ambulance drivers, etc. Everybody has really pulled weight, and I want to say we will only get out of this if each one of us pulls our own weight. If there was a risk, I would not have gone on the ship. If there was a risk, I would not be putting others in harm's way. So I want us to know, however, that the greatest risk is fear and panic, and I mean that sincerely.
Prime Minister, in terms of the countries that are actively involved in home porting, are each of these countries in a position now where they will each do the same thing in terms of when ships are coming in and there may be a need for testing?
Each country has now to do their own analysis. That's why you heard me say earlier that we're asking PAHO and CARFA to help us with a gap analysis, so that when we go now to talk to the regional and international financial institutions and our stakeholders in the private sector, that we can sensibly put together something that is not full of bells and whistles, but that is designed to take care and to stabilize what is the immediate situation. You know, if there is an appropriate vaccination in 6 to 9 months, we'll look back on this as we look back at SARS, at H1N1, at all of them. I mean, there was a point at which, with chikungunya, I still carry the scars well of chikungunya, because for 2-3 years, your joints were affected. But there was a point at which, in the September of that outbreak, the National Insurance Scheme of Barbados was inundated with claims, if you recall, sick claims from both public and private sector. So these things happen in life. Any more questions? If none, thank you very much. I really, really want to thank everyone. I am aware that this is a Sunday. I am aware that these are unusual times. But I'm equally aware that the only way we are going to solve this problem is by working cooperatively, working with a common mission, and making sure that where there are those who are not yet on board or who disagree, that we find a bridge to be able to ensure that there is constant communication, because there's nothing that says that we will always agree on everything. But we do have to agree to keep the conversation going with ourselves, with our regional public, our populations, and to ensure that, as Dr. Etienne put it so appropriately at the beginning, that we have at all times the capacity to detect, contain, and manage this particular outbreak. Today it is COVID-19, in the past it was something else. Let us make sure that as we build this capacity this time, that we're not having to do it from scratch at any time in the future. Thank you, and God bless you, and God bless this region. Thank you.
So we need to get the facts straight. How does this virus work? How does it transmit? Where does it want to go? And let's protect ourselves. I'm Dr. Peter Lin. I'm a family physician in Toronto, Canada. The coronavirus is a family of viruses that can cause as mild things as just a common cold, all the way up to SARS or MERS. These are these bad pneumonias that we're talking about. And basically what these viruses are, they look like a tennis ball with all these spikes sticking out of it. And depending on the type of spike, it allows that virus to attach to certain places. So some viruses, they have the spike that attaches to your nose. So basically you just get a common cold. But the SARS virus and this new virus that we're talking about has the spike that allows it to attach to the cells in your lung. And when it attaches there, it puts in information to make photocopies of itself. So it uses our equipment to make more viruses.
I'm declaring a public health emergency of international concern over the global outbreak of novel coronavirus.
Most of the coronaviruses live in animals. In this particular case, it was from Wuhan. There was a fish market where they were selling live animals. And the thought is that the virus was in a live animal, then it crossed into a human. But then what we found was that people were getting sick in terms of healthcare workers, in terms of family members that were looking after them, which now meant that the virus can pass from human to another human. Just like all viruses, it needs to reach a target, which is your lung. And it has to get there with your help. It has no feet and no wings. So therefore it needs us to move it there. So that's why we keep saying, don't hang around sneezy people because you're gonna breathe it in. And don't touch your face because that's how the virus is gonna get in. The masks are helpful, but they're not necessary because they're leaky. The ones that you and I buy basically have pockets here, so therefore the virus can get in. What the masks really do is they stop us from touching our face. If you're sick, we tend to mask you, so therefore you're not spewing out the viruses to other people sitting around you. The true people that have the real masks are the N95. Those are sealed. These are for the doctors that may be caring for the patients. So in the beginning, the coronavirus will cause kind of like flu-like symptoms or a cold. So people just get the stuffy nose, that kind of thing. But you'll understand that as soon as that virus starts manufacturing in your lung cells, they're producing all these copies of the virus, all of a sudden now you kill the lung cells. So now you can't exchange oxygen, and that's why one of the early symptoms is people get very short of breath and they tend to have a difficult time breathing, and that's why they end up in hospital. So currently, unfortunately, we don't have a direct treatment for the coronavirus. So we don't have a medication that can kill it off. And so it's really supportive. So in other words, the patient can't breathe, we give them oxygen, help them to breathe. They can't drink, so therefore we give them fluids to support them. Their kidneys begin to shut down, we help them with all those things. So it's a very supportive process. This is a new virus that we've never seen before. So our immune system, our army, are having a hard time figuring out what to do. So usually what we have to do is we make something called antibodies. So these are things that can grab onto the spikes that we see on the virus, and it'll get rid of the virus for you, and that will actually bring you back to good health. So therefore the elderly may have a worse outcome, and of course the young children. So the babies, their immune system is not so good either, so they may not make those antibodies as well. So just remember, your hands may be with virus. Virus cannot hurt you because it can't get through the skin, but the moment I do this, now I've brought the virus right to where it wants to go. So let's remember not to touch our hands to our face. So let's say you think that you might have been on a plane or you might have bumped into somebody that has it. What should you do? So the first thing is to contact a healthcare worker to tell them that potentially you have it. If you're feeling symptoms and you're going to go into a facility, call ahead. Okay, so whether you're calling the paramedics or whether you're calling the hospital or your doctor, just mention that you were on a flight. If you don't have any symptoms, then what we do is a little bit of a self-quarantine. In other words, we can just keep you away from other people, and so you don't go into parties, don't go with your friends, don't go into public transportation. So we can contain it very easily by making sure that you do a self-confinement, so to speak, for the, let's say, 7 to 14 days is the longest incubation time. So after that, if you're feeling well, then you don't have anything to worry about. If we get the facts right, then we don't have to be overly worried, but we do the right things so that we don't get the virus ourselves and that we don't pass it on to others. And if we look after each other in this way, this virus will have nowhere to go. It needs us to move it, it needs us to make copies for it, and if we don't help it, then the virus will stop. So we have the power to do that right now. A new virus that we've never seen before. So our immune system, our army, are having a hard time figuring out what to do. So usually what we have to do is we make something called antibodies. So these are things that can grab onto the spikes that we see on the virus and it will get rid of the virus for you, and that will actually bring you back to good health. So therefore the elderly may have a worse outcome, and of course the young children. So the babies, their immune system is not so good either, so they may not make those antibodies as well. So just remember, your hands may be with virus. Virus cannot hurt you because it can't get through the skin. But the moment I do this, now I've brought the virus right to where it wants to go. So let's remember not to touch our hands to our face. So let's say you think that you might have been on a plane or you might have bumped into somebody that has it. What should you do? So the first thing is to contact a healthcare worker to tell them that potentially you have it. If you're feeling symptoms and you're going to go into a facility, call ahead. Okay, so whether you're calling the paramedics or whether you're calling the hospital or your doctor, just mention that you were on a flight. If you don't have any symptoms, then what we do is a little bit of a self-quarantine. In other words, we can just keep you away from other people, and so you don't go into parties, don't go with your friends, don't go into public transportation. So we can contain it very easily by making sure that you do a self-confinement, so to speak, for the, let's say, 7 to 14 days is the longest incubation time. So after that, if you're feeling well, then you don't have anything to worry about. So if we get the facts right, then we don't have to be overly worried, but we do the right things so that we don't get the virus ourselves and that we don't pass it on to others. And if we look after each other in this way, this virus will have nowhere to go. It needs us to move it, it needs us to make copies for it, and if we don't help it, then the virus will stop. So we have the power to do that right now.
Welcome back. Welcome back to another edition of Hard Talk. As I introduced this morning, we had a whole number of information that we were giving to you as you listen to us. Now, it's very important with all the information that we were sharing this morning, right, concerning the coronavirus. Very important for us as a people to pay attention, ensure that we get the correct information so we can know what to do and the way forward. Joining with me right about now is our General Secretary of the New National Party, Mr. Roland Bowler, former Minister of Agriculture, Sports, and whatever. Mr. Bowler, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Devon. Good morning to your technical operator as well. And good morning to the listening public. I have been listening earlier on. Didn't get all of the program thus far, but so much information, so much necessary information, I should say, about the coronavirus. I think they call it what, COVID-19?
COVID-19, yes.
Yeah, that's the shortened form. And it is so important, Devon, that as this program, and I've heard some other stations doing something of that nature, trying to bring the proper and relevant, I should say, information to people about the virus. I think that the naysayers and those who have been trying to use this issue for political purposes, I must say, soon realizing, or they have started to come to the senses that, hey, this will not work for us. What is better to do, as we have been advising time and time again, is to prepare ourselves and our people. We do not have any cases in Grenada at this time. We pray God that we don't, and probably in the sub-region, I think news as of weekend, early this week, there might have been cases somewhere in the French-speaking
Saint Martin, I believe.
Right, yes, Caribbean islands. And we may think that they are a lot of miles away from us, but that is too close for comfort when you think about a virus of that nature and from what we understand from the virus. So we just need to continue to listen to the experts, listen to the things that we have to do. I know that the Ministry of Health, I know that the government of Grenada, I know that everyone in authority that has anything to do with trying to protect this country from getting a case of the coronavirus, that they have been doing the best they can. But as we have said before, and I'd like to repeat it this morning, no one knows where, how, and when. Yeah, the United States of America, the latest I've heard, they have gone up into the 70s now. Last week there were 60 cases. There's been another death over the weekend in Seattle, someplace there. There's now a case or two found in New York. I mean, I have a friend who earlier on, when it was still very much confined to China, who called me ranting and raving about the government and so in Grenada is bringing the virus to Grenada and what? Only because, as she was saying, because the government is getting money from China. I said, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. Yes, and Grenada is getting loans from China. I say, well, that may be the case. What about America? There's no country in the world who is indebted to China more than the United States. Trillions of dollars.
Trillions of dollars.
Right? And today, over the weekend, I think it was Sunday or something, I got a call from her again. Oh, how scared she is now because they found it in New York. She lives in New York. And I'm saying, well, look at that. All along, you should be preparing and finding out what you should do, how you can protect yourself, how you can protect your family and your friends and the people close to you. But you was ranting and raving about Grenada, who is still at this time, and hope it will remain that way, doesn't have a case. But should we get one, my friends, we must all be prepared. And you know what? Let me say that to us boldly. It makes no sense that you're trying to do everything to protect you and your family, and you're not going to try to help your neighbor or your friends. Because here's what, with all your preparation, if your neighbor should catch it, your children plays with the neighbor's children. The wives talk over the fence with one another. So when the one on one side of the fence who catch the coronavirus cough while they're talking, your wife going to inhale it, and you sleep with your wife anyway. So I hope that all the men does. I know I sleep with my wife, so Devon, I can talk about you and other people in the studio. I could only talk about myself. I'm just saying, and jokes set aside now, we need not only to feel that I have to protect myself. We have to protect each other. We have to tell each other. We have to teach and encourage, that everyone must sanitize their place, that the hygiene, the level of hygiene must be increased, that we must wash hands much more often, that we can avoid as much as possible shaking. We need to greet each other, but we don't have to touch each other. We should all learn how to practice what they call good public etiquette when we have to sneeze and cough. We need to inform each other that, should you feel like you're having the flu, should there be symptoms that you think it's flu-like, or it doesn't feel like the regular flu, it is advisable that you don't just rush to the emergency room or to the health clinic closest to you, but that you call the Ministry of Health, let them know how you're feeling. They will provide special transportation means to get you, to check you, to isolate you if that is necessary. And you do that not because you feel that you have committed a crime or a sin, but because you want to protect yourself, you want to protect your family, and you want to protect the Grenadian public. Now, I've said late last week that the issue of the coronavirus is not just about who it attacks, because I've heard some people, and the way they carry on, the way they behave is as though the virus discriminates. So it knows who it's coming for, He ain't coming for Devon, but he's coming for Bola. He ain't coming for yellow, but he's coming for green. He ain't coming, in this kind of way. No, it doesn't discriminate.
It don't work like that.
He don't work that way. He don't like the poor family and against the rich. He don't like the businessman and against the tourist vendor. If it comes, there's a strong possibility that all of us can feel and will feel the full strength and weight of it. So what we need to do is forget the politics for a moment. Forget our religious belief. Yesterday morning I was listening to the Shaggy program, and Carmi called and she said, look, now everybody talking about pray. Yes, we need to pray. We need to speak to God. We need to ask him to save us. Like in the early days when you had plagues, leprosy, and so people prayed and asked God to be merciful. Don't allow famine. Don't allow these things to come. We need to all the time, in and out of season. But you made some very good points. That sometimes when we are doing all we're doing and so we don't remember there is a God. We must remember him all the time, every time, good times, bad times, sorrowful times, happy times, always remember him. And if we always remember him, then we'll remember to do his will and to be good to each other. And that's what I'm saying. We need to share the information we have. We need to encourage others, not just be in our own little palace, locked up and feel that we could put up our rattan gate and so on. That could protect us from COVID-19. Absolutely not.
Nope,
yes?
Never.
We have to understand that if this virus ever comes here to Grenada, the better care we take of each other, that we boost our immune system by eating right foods, a balanced diet, eating our colored foods so that we can boost our system. They ask that you refrain or you reduce your intake of alcohol. Limit it to a pint or two per day. Get sufficient rest, Devon. Don't, lime out too late playing dominoes and hanging out with the guys. Yes, you have to, but cut it back. Get enough rest so your body can be rejuvenated. You can revive yourself. Drink a lot of fluids, yes? And all those things. Use your vitamins. Naturally if you can. If you can't, get the supplements.
Yes,
and use them. Vitamin B, vitamin D, vitamin K, the zinc, and all those things. Very necessary. One of the foods that we don't use a lot again in Grenada, but that contains zinc because it's a mineral that we need, but not a lot of foods have it. Beets, they said you will get a bit of it, but very, very pronounced is in our chocolate, the local Grenada cocoa, not so much the chocolate, but the cocoa, yes? So all the days I remember as a little boy growing up, we used to have the mortar and the pestle. Yeah. You would remember that. You're from the countryside too. People like Nazim and them who grew up in town don't know anything about mortar.
They didn't know about that.
No, right? There was the stone mortar and then there was the wood mortar. Right? Yes. So they like the early people used to get a nice stone and would carve a nice hole in it.
Mortar and pestle.
And you make a pestle from a nice piece of wood, yeah?
Spice wood.
Spice wood, really solid, well cured and so. The interesting thing is that we used to sweat and to dry our cocoa, then patch it, put it in a big pot. Some people nowadays, they put it in the stoves, in the oven, you know? And then you had to sit down and shell the skin out. But I don't think it's absolutely necessary to take off the skin because there's a lot of nutrients, as far as I understand, right beneath the skin. But we used to put it in that mortar and sit down and keep ponging. You pong it until it gets really soft and creamy. And then the parents would roll some little ones. I remember sometimes they used to make some long ones, man, like the big dumpling. And you on the morning you had a great that.
You grate that for your tea.
Put it into the hot water.
We don't see that
with spices. That contains a lot of zinc, the cocoa. Very good.
And it's needed.
And it's needed. It's needed. It helps the system. So all we are saying is that let's follow protocol. But also, Devon, quite interestingly, I heard you mention it this morning, that the Prime Minister of this country will be addressing the nation later on this afternoon. Yes. You know, and I've been saying repeatedly on this program, there was so much noise. Oh, you don't hear the Prime Minister. Of course, one, the Prime Minister is not a medical professional. No. So he has to listen to what the professional has to say. He has to take advice from them. But also, when they go to CARICOM heads meeting and the Minister of Health goes to meeting, regional meetings and so, there are a lot of experts that are there that will speak to them and give them ideas. So on Sunday, there were some decisions taken with Mia Mottley, Prime Minister of Barbados, who I think is the head of CARICOM at the moment, and all that, as to the new protocols that they will follow. Re-tourism, re-health. I know sometime yesterday or sometime they were supposed to meet with Liat and the pilots, and so they have had some sort of arrangement with the cruise people, you know, so tourism and everything. And that brings me back to that issue we had earlier on in the week where Dr. Modes, our Minister for Tourism and Civil Aviation, was interviewed in an interview with MTV, and the question was asked whether or not they will ban, you know, all tourist ship, and so on. She said, it is not necessary at this time. Yes? Because you do not work in isolation. Yes, there's the scare, there's the sickness, there's the virus, but the region works together. And of course, you can take individual decisions to tighten up a little more or loosen up a little more. Because, for example, Grenada is one of the states in the sub-region that has banned direct flights from China.
Yes.
But that hasn't happened in Dominica. Dominica still accepts flights from China. Barbados still accepts, you know. So there are more that you can do. But, of course, the region is together. So now the region is taking some decisions. I am quite sure that Grenada will implement whatever they have to implement.
And what is so important about that gathering, right, or the Ministers of Health and so on, and led by Mia Mottley, Prime Minister of Barbados, you can see that gives the people of the region that confidence that the leadership, right, is taking a grip of the whole situation, right? And that is what is important. That is where we have to focus. Listen, pay attention to the experts, as you said, the medical personnel and so who knows about the virus and what it entails, how we can manage it and so. And now you have in the leaders, right, the health ministers and the leaders of CARICOM coming together and speaking with one common voice.
Yes.
That is the confidence that the people of the Caribbean need.
Right. And they have been meeting before. Now it just has been intensified. Yes. Because as the situation changes, it demands, you know, different. In fact, the Director General of WTO said some time ago not WTO. I keep saying WTO, which is the World Trade. WHO, the World Health Organization, and forgive me for that, has been saying that when they look at it, the dynamics is different in different countries where they have seen the virus appear.
Of course.
And so you have to tailor-make a situation. Now, there are certain fundamental and rudimentary things that you must do. So the issue of hygiene, the issue of drinking a lot more fluid, the issue of boosting your immune system and all that, that is standard anywhere you go. But the level of threat is different. So, and I use the example of Vietnam, for example. Yes. Earlier on, they found 16 cases. Now, all 16 cases have been cured. They have no deaths. They've been cured. No one else has contracted. It must mean that Vietnam would have implemented and instituted certain protocol to isolate or quarantine those people who had it, to treat them. There's no vaccine for the virus, but of course your body is able, and that's why they say eat right, rest sufficiently, exactly. Drink sufficient fluid so that your immune system will be strong enough to fight the virus. Yes,
and even in China too, where the virus they claim it originated from.
Yes,
even it's basically going down now because they have been able to contain
the number of cases per day. That new cases has been reduced.
Exactly.
And, so it's what they call plateauing out, but significantly too, the number of recovery. There's a lot of people. So close to 80,000 people.
Almost 90,000. Yeah.
No, yeah. And the last I heard, over 33,000 people had recovered fully from the virus. So there is hope, right? Most of the people who have died as a result are generally senior people, 80 years of 70 and 80 years old. There are a few younger ones, but also significant for one to take into consideration is that most of them would have had some underlying illness. So which simply means, based on the health professionals, that the immune system has been a little bit weaker, I did not have enough strength, wasn't robust enough for the fight, yes? So that's why we keep saying to people, build your immune system. Set your army up for that fight that may come, right? And then if we know or we feel like something may have happened, we feel that we have been exposed and we may have contracted, we need to contact the health authorities. Not go mingle up and mix up with everybody else to spread it.
Self-isolation.
Let the health people check you. They will know how best to advise you. You can be healed from it because it's flu-like symptoms. So all the scare tactics, it wasn't working. It frightened a few people. People were worried. So getting back to the point, now that the Prime Minister has information, that it's getting nearer to our shores, that the medical experts have sat him down and explained, that the regional leaders and health officials had met and have a blueprint, he can now with confidence address the nation to say, look, these are the things we have been doing. These are the things we are planning to do. This is what we need you to do, because I've said it before. Controlling and ensuring that a disease like that, a virus like that, doesn't wreak havoc in our country. It's not a job only for the members of parliament.
No.
It's not a job only for the government workers. It's not a job that lies solely in the lap of the medical professionals. Yes? There's something that every single one of us can and must do. Yes? We have constitutional rights, but we also have constitutional duties that we must perform.
Yes.
Right? It's our right to be protected by our government, but it is our duty as a people to ensure that we do what we're supposed to do to protect ourselves and our family. And it has been prescribed, it has been said to us clearly, these are the things that you must do. So as much as we possibly can, stay away from large crowds. If we see people, anyone could be our very best friend that exhibits flu-like symptoms, keep our distances from them. Encourage them to isolate themselves, stay home. Sneeze, cough into a tissue and get rid of it, you know. And after you do that, you rub some hand sanitizer, you know, alcohol based, on your hand. And for those of us who came into contact with these people, wash our hands, wash our faces. Try not, after being in contact, before we wash with soap and water properly for a minute or two, try not to touch our mouths, our eyes, our ears.
As a prevention.
As a prevention. Because the virus cannot just penetrate our skin like that. It can't go through our hands, you know, our feet, our skin.
We have to help it.
We have to help it. We have to transport it to the places where they can enter, because where it wants to go is into our lung, where it can start multiplying and start attacking our cells in the lungs, so that we start having breathing problems, and so some people suffocate, some people become asthmatic, or some are already asthmatic. So so they have the right environment for it to work, for it to multiply, for it to produce more. But it only happens if we bring it there, because it don't fly. It don't have wings.
So it all comes down to us as a people, the individual, to do what is necessary. You know,
our share.
Yeah. And while listening to the press conference, me and Motla, I took a phrase from her, and she was stressing on the whole question of the preparedness. But what is interesting, she came up with that thing about we detect, right, that virus. We try to contain it.
Yes.
And then we manage it.
Yes.
Which is so important. And over the weeks and months, and so the Ministry of Health, and so this program have been impressing on people the importance, right, of getting the right information, right, the importance of being prepared, right, knowing what to do, when to do it, because, I mean, in my view, it will come. It will come. We as a people have to decide how prepared we are, right? And I always mention the whole question of preparedness for the hurricane season. We do that every year. It should be a simple protocol for us to move forward. We know what needs to be done. As you rightly said, the washing of our hands. And so doing things that we can't, spread the virus if and when it does touch our soil. We have a caller. Good morning and welcome. Oh, we lost that caller. You know, I must, it must be said. And our Prime Minister, in his address later on, will impress on the nation as to the steps, as you said, steps that we must take, right? Things that are in place, right, for this country in the eventuality that something like that happens. We must not be complacent, right? We must know what we are about. We must gather as much information. We must share the information with our neighbors, right, with the school children, with our elderly persons, with the business people, the busmen, and so. And I would advise the busmen and so, right, to have information pertaining to about the coronavirus while persons travel with you, so they can sit down and talk about it. And so we need together as a people to tackle this thing. We cannot do it alone. Good morning and welcome. Good morning.
Devon.
Good morning, sir. How are you doing?
A long time I hear your voice.
Yes.
You laughing? Good morning, Mr. Bola.
Morning to you, sir.
Well, you know who's speaking?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
That voice cannot be lost. Yeah, we're talking about the virus and telling people how to prepare themselves,
But I have strong faith in that. Nothing coming here.
Well, we all hope and believe. We pray for that.
Again, the word of God says, once you believe and your faith strong, he go move mountain.
Yes.
And that is me.
Okay, you strong faith?
That is me. I don't know about other people.
Okay.
I believe in Jesus. He is the healer.
Yes.
Nothing else. Man can do nothing.
Okay.
Jesus alone that could do. And if Jesus say yes, no man can say no.
Yes.
Okay?
Well, I know that song, They don't sing it in church all the time.
Yes, and if he say no,
yes, when Jesus
no man
say
can
yes.
say yes.
When Jesus
because he is the master of the universe.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, Mr. Bola,
yes,
I get enough feelings. That is not just a virus, you know. That is a man-made thing, you know.
You think so?
Yes, sir.
Well, so far they can't.
My belief.
They can't prove that. I can't do. Your belief is yours, but so far there is no scientific evidence as yet to prove that it's man-made. Some people have been saying that.
I believe that is what since I hear that.
Yes.
What that just come to my spirit.
Yes.
And I'm feeling the difference of that is a man-made thing. Just now you won't hear about it.
You will disappear.
You will.
Okay.
Because it's a man-made thing.
Yeah.
They almost make the money what they want already.
Okay.
I'm saying it in boldness, you know, because I get it from the Lord, you know. The Lord just showing me my spirit.
Yes.
No joke.
I hear you.
No joke.
All right,
That's why I say I go give a little buzz just to talk about that.
All right. Let me hear you.
And what we have to do, let we put we trust in the Lord.
In the Lord.
And pray.
Yes.
Because he said, if my people will call his name.
Yes.
And seek his face.
Yes.
And turn from our wicked ways.
Yes.
He will hear us.
Yes.
And he will heal our land.
Yes.
This country is Jesus' country. He will heal it. Have a nice day, sir.
You have a very blessed one yourself.
Very blessed one.
Yes.
All right, you take care. And so important. And again, we come back to the whole question of people. And I want to, before, just as we're about to close this program, we have a couple of more minutes. I want to continue, right, to warn persons, right? Stop continuing the practice of spreading false information when it comes to the coronavirus. Right? Stop using this issue as a political football to scare people, right? To make people think different about what is going on. We as a people must learn to appreciate the work, right, that is being done by our health professionals right here in Grenada, right? Even the first line of defense for our country, the immigration officers, the customs, right, the health professionals. We have to give them that support. We have to listen to them. We have to be prepared. And as a people, let us be more mature. And to those of you who are out there continuing to spread false information about persons being allowed to enter this country without not being checked by the relevant authorities and everything like that. Stop. It is a very dangerous thing that some of us continue to do, scaring people, right? And that will just make the situation worse. Yeah. Let us be conscious of what we are doing. Let us focus on the right thing. Let us help each other. We all, if we put our hands together, as Carriacou is doing, right, we can beat and fight the disease when it do enter our country.
I just want, as we're closing the one, I think I read a portion of what the Director General said some weeks ago of WHO. But it still is very relevant up to today, especially in light of what the region is doing now. He says, our decisions about whether to use the word pandemic to describe an epidemic is based on an ongoing assessment of the geographical spread of the virus. In other words, some people are saying that they should declare it as a pandemic, I mean worldwide. But he's saying not yet. We have to do it based on assessment of the geographical spread of the virus and the severity of the disease it causes and the impact it has on the world society, right? For the moment, we are not witnessing the uncontained global spread of this virus, and we are not witnessing large-scale severe disease or death. So while he's admitting there is some death, and so he's saying it's not large-scale. SARS killed about 10% of the people that was contracted with. This one so far is still contained to 2%. Yes?
And that is good.
Yeah. Does this virus have pandemic potential? Absolutely. It has the potential. Sure. Are we there yet? He said, from our assessment, not yet. Which is similar to what the Minister for Tourism said. Should we ban tourism generally? She said, not at this time. But we may get there, right? What we see are epidemics in different parts of the world affecting countries in different ways. and requiring a tailor-made response for them. So the way in which it's attacking one country is different to the next in terms of the volume of people that contracted, the deaths and everything. So the Director General is saying we have to tailor-make the requirements for every country. The sudden increase in new cases is certainly very concerning, so because it has spread to more countries now, right? Using the word pandemic now does not fit the facts, but it may certainly cause fear, which is a lot of what we see happening with people on Facebook and all kind of thing, using all kind of words, saying all kind of thing. It's not the facts, but it can and does create fear. This is not the time to focus on what word we use. That, he says, will not prevent a single infection today or save a single life. In other words, he's saying, when you focus on fiction instead of facts, and you bring all kind of stories, it doesn't save a life or it doesn't save an infection. So we should focus on the facts. Yeah. This is time for all countries, communities, families, and individuals to focus on preparing. And we're reminding Grenadians, focus on preparing. And we tell you all the things you can do to prepare, right? He said, there is no one-size-fits-all approach. Every country must make its own risk assessment from its own context. WHO is also continuing to do its own risk assessment and is monitoring the evaluation of the epidemic around the clock. So they're looking at every country, they are collecting information, they are advising, but of course internally, which is what is happening in Grenada. Yes. Our health workers, the frontline workers, they're there, they're checking people, they're assessing, they're quarantining those that they think they have to.
And has been doing that for weeks now, not just
right?
today. Yeah.
So he said there are at least 3 priorities that all of us must face. He said, first, all countries must prioritize protecting the health workers because they're number one. They come first. We need them. They're on the front line. They're on the battlefield. They're like the foot soldiers that comes out first. So we have to concentrate on protecting them. And I guess Prime Minister this afternoon will speak about what they're already doing and what more they can do. He says, second, we must engage communities to protect people who are most at risk of severe disease, particularly the elderly and people with underlying health conditions. As we've said before, most of the deaths were people who had other illnesses, underlying health conditions, as they say. So he's saying the vulnerable, let's protect them. Let's give the information. And we have started doing that. Only last Thursday, there was a massive meeting at the Tivoli RC School where the 4 constituencies in St. Andrews came together, close to 300 people, and extensive information was given out about the coronavirus, where it started, what it's about, how it's affecting people, and things like that, right? And then he said, thirdly, which is more original and international, that we must protect countries that are most vulnerable. So not just families and communities, but countries. And that's what the region is doing, working together, looking at how they can plan together and put things together to help each other. He said, when we act together, countries, region, and global health organizations, the media, the private sector, and people everywhere, our collective strength is formidable. Alone we will lose. Together we will win. We will beat this virus. So I just want all Grenadians to remember that the only way out for us is to prepare, and that we must stay together. We must seek the facts, speak the facts, help each other, and not frighten people. Not frighten each other by telling them fictitious things that doesn't make a lot of sense. Grenada, it is our time to help each other, to prepare, to show patriotism, to come together, show the love and the resilience that we had after Hurricane Ivan and Emily. And so we have not seen the virus yet, but we can show that same kind of love by starting to prepare and to help our neighbors, help our friends, help the less fortunate, make them know what is happening, tell them the things they should be doing, the things they should stop doing, and those they should be doing. And in so doing, we'll be protecting ourselves, our family, and our country at large. Thank you for listening. There's just one little thing, Devon, before you come in to close your program, that I was asked to throw out here. It's coming from the St. Patrick's East constituency. They have what they call Moonlight All Fours plus Karaoke. And that is taking place at the Bathway Beach on Saturday 7th. So it must be this Saturday coming, right? Saturday 7th, March 2020. Yeah. And it starts at 2 p.m. in the afternoon. So Nazim, if you have some time, do your work in the morning, head up to Bathway, All Fours Karaoke, Bathway Beach. A lot of food, they said, for free. food for free.
What?
But there's a paid bar. All right?
No problem with that.
If you want to drink anything outside of seawater, you're going to have to pay for it. But you got food of all description and type for free. Bathway Beach this Saturday, the 7th, 2020, starting at 2 p.m.
And you can go all night.
All night because they said it's moonlight. And I think
the
it's
moonlight
around,
is nice.
Yeah, it would be around full moon. I'm not sure exactly when it's
full moon. It'll be about 2 days or 3 days before.
Before, but it would be night at Bathway Beach. St. Patrick's East. So I'm living at the studio.
And so we can continue. Well, we have come to the end of yet another program. But before we leave, I just want to continue to impress on all our listeners, right? The whole question of preparedness. We must, as a people, be prepared for anything. We are a resilient people. We can handle anything, but together we can do it. Divided, we will be defeated, but together we will do it. My name is Devon Romain, and my co-host, Mr. Bola. I want to thank everyone who has been listening to us, and as I leave, share information responsibly. Thank you, and have a wonderful day.
You're listening to Hard Talk Grenada via www.hardtalkgrenada.com.
Stay up to date with all that's happening with your party, NNP. Send us a message via text or WhatsApp on 405-8683 with your name, email, and constituency. Stay in the know with NNP. Get updated.
Expanded Bureau of CARICOM heads to work towards managing outbreaks of COVID-19. Details to this story and more in the National Report. With the details to the news for Monday, March 2nd, I am Leslie Ann Johnson. A framework has been established for an expanded Bureau of CARICOM heads of government to marshal the resources necessary to increase their capacity to contain and manage outbreaks of COVID-19. That announcement by Chairman of CARICOM, Barbados' Prime Minister Mia Mottley, when she chaired a special meeting in Barbados on Sunday to discuss with colleagues ways in which they can protect the region from COVID-19. Grenada was represented at the meeting by Minister for Health, the Honourable Nicholas Steele. The decision to hold a special meeting was taken by Ms. Mottley following consultations with outgoing CARICOM Chairman, Prime Minister Alan Chasney of St. Lucia, after both leaders participated in 2 emergency meetings of the Council for Human and Social Development, COSAD, and Chief Medical Officers on COVID-19 via video conference last week. Prime Minister Mottley says the meeting settled on a regional protocol that establishes minimum standards as to what is expected from the cruise industry and CARICOM member states. A subcommittee for the expanded bureau has also been created.
The subcommittee of the bureau, expanded bureau, so it will be Barbados, St. Vincent, St. Lucia, and Antigua, will start work immediately to see how, in partnership with CARFA and PAHO, we can work with these stakeholders to see how we can marshal the resources necessary to immediately meet our concerns nationally, regionally, and with our partners, particularly in the case of the cruise industry. Those of us that are home porting have particularly different responsibilities from those who are just a cruise destination.
Head of the Pan American Health Organization, Dr. Clarissa Etienne, who joined the meeting via Zoom from Washington, D.C., said as of March 1st, 2020, there were globally 86,933 confirmed cases of COVID-19 with 2,977 deaths and 60 countries with reported cases, 5 of which were new. She said that as of Friday last, the WHO had upgraded the risk levels for all countries as very high.
WHO has fallen short of naming this outbreak a pandemic, but it is expected that very soon there will be a a naming of the pandemic. The outlook for the Carriacou region, therefore, there is a high likelihood that we will see cases in this sub-region. It's already here. We have cases in St. Martin. WHO does have great concern for the situation in some countries, particularly those countries with weak health systems.
Sunday's meeting targeted mainly those in the cruise industry, and another meeting is being planned for March 13th for those in the airline industry. Chairman of COSAD, Minister Malwin Joseph from Antigua, says capacity building will be a crucial aspect of their operations.
The fact is that we have moved now from a state where we are mitigating to a state where we are adapting in the Caribbean. And that means that the Caribbean must build capacity in the reality that one day we'll have to manage a case of COVID-19. As was stated before, it's not if, it's when.
Meanwhile, Health Minister the Honourable Nicholas Steele says because of the inevitability of the virus entering the region, they agreed to work with the cruise ship industry to help improve capacity of all islands. He says there was also agreement at Sunday's meeting to put CDEMA on full alert and have coordination with the agency with respect to COVID-19.
It was determined at that point, based on the participation of Pan American Health Organization and CARFA, that it is an inevitability that COVID-19 will arrive into our shores throughout Carriacou. In fact, while we were at that meeting, St. Martin and St. Bart's confirmed their first cases. So we do expect it. So we are now focusing a lot of our resources on the inevitability as opposed to the port protection. While we still remain diligent and still continue our maximum efforts at our port, we are also, as we have been doing in Grenada since mid-January, preparing for the inevitability. The first part of that preparation is to protect your ports of entry as much as possible to delay the inevitability, but also to recognize now that it is broken out into various countries all over the world, it is quite likely an inevitability that it will enter our region. And as such, we continue our preparation and strengthening of our various systems there, and also, as came out from yesterday, strengthening our communication as a CARICOM group.
Prime Minister Dr. The Right Honourable Keith Mitchell has assured healthcare workers that the necessary resources will be made available as Grenada intensifies its preparedness activities in light of the threat posed by the coronavirus COVID-19. Addressing health workers who were involved in a tabletop exercise at the ministerial complex on Sunday afternoon, Dr. Mitchell said, and I quote, "We have to treat this as a national issue, and there can be no question of limitation of resources to do what we have to do. We are facing a national crisis that involves all of us, not just doctors and nurses. It's everybody. We are in this together," unquote. Dr. Mitchell, who is also the Minister for Finance, said additional resources will be made available and the Ministry of Health will determine how these will be best utilized. The Prime Minister commended health officials for their dedication to duty. The tabletop exercise, organized by the Ministry of Health, brought together key stakeholders to simulate the confirmation of a case of COVID-19 and examine the necessary actions to be taken. Representatives from both the public and private sectors participated in the exercise, and Dr. Mitchell welcomed this collaborative approach. This is the National Report. More news after the break. Continuing the news, rehabilitation work is now underway at the Pearls Bridge to make it safer for use by motorists and pedestrians. The bridge was closed on February 25th. A contract for work to be undertaken was awarded on December 3rd, 2019, but the material needed for construction was not on island and was handed over only on Friday last. The Ministry of Infrastructure Development and Implementation says work is expected to last for 2 weeks, and it is working towards opening the bridge on or before March 20th. GIS spoke with contractor Radesh Lalji on Monday.
I strip the bridge and I'm putting on the wood now. And I'm trying to finish it in a week and a half, you know. The material come out from Dusty Highway Steel Works. They come from. I put in the order for the material since in December.
Finally, in the news, the government of Grenada is making good on its promise of cabinet reform to improve the efficiency of the decision-making process. The planned reforms included the introduction of a paperless e-cabinet system, and on Monday, members of cabinet accessed their documents electronically during the weekly cabinet meeting. The launch of the e-cabinet system coincided with the introduction of the revised template for cabinet submissions, which allows for the inclusion of evidence and analysis to support the proposals put forth by ministers. The new system enables the preparation and conduct of meetings, as well as the issuance of government decisions, to be done securely, collaboratively, and efficiently. The web-based software for e-cabinet keeps relevant information organized and updated in real time. It also allows for online collaboration among ministers. Acting Cabinet Secretary Ms. Ruth Rouse said, and I quote, "An immediate benefit of the paperless system is the elimination of the need to print and deliver thousands of pages of documents each week, which amounts to significant savings for the environment and the taxpayer," unquote. Prime Minister and Chairman of Cabinet, Dr. the Right Honourable Keith Mitchell, welcomed the introduction of e-cabinet, saying that as we move to create a more digital-oriented society, it is prudent that Cabinet should lead by example. The introduction of e-cabinet and other procedural changes are expected to result in more strategic cabinet meetings with less time spent on routine matters, while facilitating more detailed discussion on addressing government's development priorities. Ultimately, the changes are expected to lead to improved governance and the delivery of government's programs and priorities. And that's the National Report. I'm Leslie Ann Johnson.